Welcome to Get Your House in Order, where the Medici brothers, investors and entrepreneurs, Cris Auditore and Dr. Philip Zimmermann, discuss timeless principles of success, significance and legacy. A podcast for business owners who want to design a beautiful life and a beautiful business. Sponsored by the one and only exclusive Medici community.
Welcome back to Get Your House in Order. We talk about ideas, strategies, about how to set up a beautiful life and a beautiful business. Today we want to talk about the title, Who Do You Ask for $1 Million? Who do you ask for $1 million? The power in proximity. Cris, who do you ask apart from me for $1 million?
Yeah, well, the title kind of comes out of one of my business stories. Is that years ago I was in between two major acquisitions and property deals where one deal hadn't quite finished, a new deal was entering, and I was short of €1 million in my bank account to kind of pull the deal off. And that's a problem. If you're lacking $1 million, you know that'd be a problem. And here's the story. I called one friend and asked him whether he would help me out with $1 million. And within 24 hours, he transferred the money with no contract.
Can you name who it was?
Yeah, I'm not going to do that. With no guarantee that I had given him, with no contract, even though he knows I'm a lawyer. Yeah, I just called him and said, "Hey, I need some cash here to pull this off. You're gonna get the money back quickly here." And I explained to him the deal, and he just transferred the money, no questions asked. Basically, no questions asked. And so that's kind of a cool story. And why is it cool? Because I had someone in my phone that I could ask that question to, and I've shared this, with some guys, specifically when they're fundraising. Lots of entrepreneurs, kind of in the startup phase, they're fundraising, but not just kind of in the startup phase. Later on, we have projects where we want to get some money, we want to get investments, and fundraising is not an easy task. It's actually quite difficult. It's a whole job description. In fact, many business owners, all they do at the end of the day is kind of make sure that there's enough money, that they've got investors lined up, and so this is a lot of what we do. In fact, I would still say this is so much part of my life now. Even though I don't actively manage the businesses, I'm still responsible at the end of the day for the money and for the big investments. And so we look at over various investments and do all that kind of stuff. But the question is, who do you have? Who are you connected with that can help you? And there are people. Let's put it this way: there are people you can ask for $10. There are people you can ask for $100. There are people you can ask for $10,000. There are people you can ask for $100,000. But there are probably not that many people you can ask for $1 million. And so the power of proximity that's what I want to talk about. And here's the story behind the story. This friend of mine that I called up, he's not always been my friend. He's not always been in my circle of influence. He's not my childhood buddy. He's not family. But we've become friends. And we've shared some common experiences together. And I've built trust with him, so much trust that he actually is willing to take a risk. Now, obviously, it's not his only million that he has. But I don't care, how many millions you have. €1 million is a lot of money. But he's also not a billionaire. And so it needed a level of trust. So the question we need to talk about in business is how do you build trust? Number one, And number two, how do you do that with people of influence, or of means? You know, people that do have money.
Well, it is a real powerful thinking question. I love to ask the question, you know, who do you call, you know, when you're stranded in a third world country and you don't get out? Who will actually pick up the phone at 3 o'clock in the morning and actually fly over and help get you out? Because that kind of shows you what kind of friends you have. But this is a whole nother question that makes you actually think, okay, who do I need to get connected to? It also very similar to one of the house rules from the book Get Your House in Order is befriend kings and popes. And maybe you can talk about here in a second about that principle from Cosimo de' Medici, because it very much is about, okay, how can I strategically set myself up so that I have a list of people that I could potentially call if I need $1 million? It's a great thinking question.
Yeah, and so here's basically how I would like to line up that conversation is, in a sense, you need to put people in categories. And depending on your family background, values, religion, and ethics, you may say, oh, it's a bad thing to put people in categories. Okay, and I respect that. But for the matter of this conversation, you need to put people into different kind of categories. And let me explain what that means. There's just different levels of wealth distributed in the world, and that is not a subjective matter. That's objective. You know, your net worth is something that can be measured, and most of us, well, no, let me rephrase that. All of us are born into some context of wealth. You know, oftentimes when you read biographies, people share about how they came, you know, out of poor family, and then they, you know, from a dishwasher to a millionaire. That's the typical American success story. So we all start off somewhere on some economic scale: low class, middle class, upper class, super rich, whatever that is. Now, what I think we need to, first of all, recognize is, where are we coming from? What level are we at? And then to ask the question, how do I improve that? And how do I move up the ladder a few steps? And that can only happen if you look that brutal truth into the eye, that there is not an equal distribution of wealth in this world, and within society, and within your country, and within your city, and perhaps even within your family. And so you need to have a look at that, and then think through, you know, what do you want to do about that? And the reason we're talking about this here in this context to business owners. Every business owner I know needs money. Okay? And I don't care how wealthy you are. We all need money. We all need money for the next project, for the next venture, for the next asset. We all do. And the question is, where does that come from? Now, it can come out of our own savings. It can come out of our inheritance. It can come out of our own family. It can come out of our cash flow business. Yes. That's why. And then, well, but that's an environment that you've evaluated. But it can also come not out of your own realm, but out of someone else's realm. And then, you know, how does that transfer from their realm to mine? How does that work? And what's the strategy? And what's the thinking? And what's the relationship? And what's the trust? And how do you develop that? That's kind of the question.
Well, I know people maybe who listen to this for the first time, they don't know your background, but if I would put, you know, would say that there, you know, we each come with a few superpowers. There are a few superpowers I have, and there are a few superpowers you have. And one of the superpowers you have is actually that you have that gift connect with kings and popes, as you kind of outline in the book, and that comes very natural to you, or at least it feels like it comes natural to you. But it does not come across because of our community. There's a lot of overlap where I feel like you are connected to kings and popes and people of influence and of wealth, but there is not the feeling like you come out of a position of need, or out of, you're just using them for a future scenario. It's like. And so, what's the difference between somebody who does networking, to use another word, with people of influence, that where it really kind of, where you just go like, they are needy, they you don't want to be around them, and how do you network where the other person actually feels excited about giving you $1 million or €1 million because of the relationship you've built?
Well, let me say it like this. In another episode, we talked about books, and how we love and enjoy books and reading, and there are lots of books on networking, on how to build a network, and let me just put it this way. I don't like most of these books. I've started a lot of books, and after 2 chapters, I stop reading and I throw the book away, because for me, if it's built on a transaction, if we develop relationships built on a transaction, then in a sense, we're not valuing the relationship. Okay, now. I need to put this in the larger context. I'm a transactional kind of person. The reason I've built and created success and wealth is because I know how to cut a deal. I know how to develop assets. I know how to do that. But I also, underneath, have this broad understanding that I really value people. So for me, it's all about the question whether you actually value people. And that's where I don't care whether you have €1 million on your bank account or you have nothing on your bank account. Do you value people? And I would say, because you talk about a superpower, is that whether it's a billionaire or whether it's a beggar on the street, I really believe my core strength is that I value people. I really value people. I value other people's opinion. I value and see the dignity. I mean, Philip, that we've spent as a family a lot of time in Africa, and I've traveled prior to the pandemic. Every year I spend weeks in Africa, and helping on projects. Most of the projects that we get involved with are with the poorest people that there are. So our family has sponsored and helped to create some schools in the Congo, in the DRC, Democratic Republic of Congo, in Goma, and I've started taking people there. We've helped. Now, then later on, we started with a hospital project for the people who don't have access to medical support. We've helped and networked and sponsored a hospital that where people are being treated. So what I want to say is, when I'm in Africa, in the bush, with people who have absolutely nothing, don't even know how to survive the next month, I know that I connect with them on a personal level, because I'm there with them. And normally I sleep on the floor. I've told that to business guys, at least once a year you need to sleep somewhere in a third world country on the floor, because it's kind of good for your ego check. And I've done that for many years, and so in a sense I kind of enter that realm. And I'm there, and I love the people, and enjoy it. In fact, the most happiest times I've had for years was around a campfire in the middle of the bush, having some great conversations, and learning from people that look totally different from me, have totally different experience. One of the subjects that I took a deep study on was, for example, the genocide that happened between Rwanda and the Congo. And I've talked with victims. I've talked with people who've prosecuted. I've taken people to the Genocide Museum, and so long story back to the power of proximity. Do you value people? Is a question that every business owner needs to answer. And I would also say, even within your company, like your employees, how do you value your employees? Do you just use them as a means to an end, or do you value them? Okay, so that's a question. And then to your business partners, business relationships, bank managers, people, investors, do you actually value the people behind that or not? And I think, so for the first topic, trust. Trust wins when people know that you value them, and you actually do.
Well, you can't fake that. People realize that on all kinds of different levels, so to speak. That you, so it's the same kind of. That's why thinking in categories might help there, because you really kind of ask yourself, okay, who is in my category that I can value there. The same question we ask about, where we talk about, where do you give, where you do something good? How do you help some people? What projects are you supporting to make this world a better world? Who is in that category? That doesn't mean everything has to shift into one category, but you at least are becoming more strategic to say, okay, if the baseline is really value people, I want to value people in different categories, because I have to be strategic in making sure that at some point in each of the categories, I maybe have somebody I need to call when I'm in the middle of somewhere lost and I need a friend, or I need a million euros.
Well, and since I brought up the subject of a third world country, let's think of Mother Teresa. Okay, and so she's obviously been a world figure, very much known, and she's known for taking care of the least of and the poorest of the poor in Calcutta, India, serving the orphans on the street. That were basically pushed away by society. She's world famous about that. Now, here's the interesting thing about Mother Teresa. Actually, there are hundreds of thousands of Mother Teresas around the world, and I've met quite a few who are just selflessly loving on people and doing a great service. Now, what's special about Mother Teresa? The special thing about Mother Teresa is that at the same time she built friendships with kings and popes. Mm-hmm. Okay, so I've seen her, kind of in Washington D.C. in the United States. How does a woman? She comes here from, I think, Albania. Here in Europe. Now she lives in Calcutta, India, and she ends up in Washington D.C. Talking to the, I think, United Nations, and basically lecturing them on the love for humanity, and how we all need to help. And so, like, how does a woman like that end up there? Well, it's very simple. She loves the people on the street, but she also builds relationships with kings and popes and people of influence, and perhaps even to further her ministry on the street. Yeah. So this is where, for me, it's not a contradiction. I'm basically holding this in both ends. So it's trust, building trust, valuing people, at the same time not being blind to everyone is the same. No, not everyone is the same. There are people with different kinds of power, influence, and money. And so you need to acknowledge that. And then you need to, apply that principle of love and trust also to that context. Okay, let me make it specific. I was speaking at a small business forum in Dallas, Texas, last year, and someone asked me, Cris, you are friends with a whole bunch of billionaires, okay? Like, how do you do that? How do you become a friend of a billionaire? And I said, well, you want the short answer or the long answer? He said, the short answer. Okay, I'll give you the short answer. You become friends with a billionaire if you don't want anything. If you don't want anything from them. Because here's the reality. Everyone wants something from a billionaire. What do they want? Well, everyone wants access, money, investment. If you connect with a billionaire, you want something from them. Okay, so billionaires are very much on the lookout. They don't want... they actually kind of, that's why they live behind big walls. That's why they are shunned off by security, because everyone wants something from them. So the reason to break through that is if you don't want something to them. And so I've walked in and out of, very, very famous and rich people's houses. And I would say, number one, they sense that I value them. Number two is that I don't want anything from you. I don't. I'm here to, if I can help you in what you're trying to accomplish, I'm happy to do that. But I don't show up as someone who wants something or is sucking something out of them.
Well, and that's we're also playing the long game. And if you need $1 million and you go to a networking event in the evening and feel like you're gonna get it, you come across as somebody who is really weird.
You're not gonna get it like that.
You're not gonna get it like that. But if you really are intentional about building relationships where you are a giver and where you are supporting and where you really value people, and that goes back to really knowing, are you a person who is in it for the deal, just for the deal, or are you in it to really see, okay, if I can build a community of people that where they can call me and I call them. It's not just about getting the deal done. There's so much. There is so much beauty that comes with it. And we talk about creating a beautiful life. And yes, you can make a deal and that can be great, but you can also create many more deals and have a beautiful life at the same time, because you do deals with people that you actually are in community with, that you actually are connected with, where when you win, they win, and when they win, you win. And that is just the power of community. And deep down in us, that's how we are made. We are tribal people in that sense. And if you are just a lone wolf, well, there's a reason why it says lonely at the top, because you didn't take anybody with you and you don't have friends on top with you.
Well, let me give an example out of a very transactional business arena, which is the real estate business. So I've been buying multifamily properties for the last 20 some years. And everyone knows that the business of buying properties is a very transactional. There's a real estate agent who wants a commission and wants a big check. There's a seller who wants to have an even bigger check, and there's a buyer, and then basically try to
wants to write a little check.
Yeah, and who's a buyer who wants to write a little check, and so it is by nature. It's a very transactional business if you're a real estate investor. Now, here's one of the things that for example, I've done. I've stayed in touch with every person that I've ever bought a building from. I've stayed in touch with these people. In fact, many of them are my friends. Even though, we kind of, at the beginning, you almost meet like competitors.
Battlefield.
Yeah, it's like a battlefield. And then, and you settle the battlefield at the notary, which I've been in some brutal notary meetings where people start shouting at each other and this clause and that clause and this amount, this is the battlefield. That's why you need some lawyers in the midst of it. And so that's how most people, and then, cut the deal. I've developed relationships with the people that I've bought properties with. In fact, because my mantra was very simple. Someone who buys €1 million property today, he's going to probably sell one in the future again. And so I've always kind of said, hey, Tom, hey, Kevin, hey, Tim, next time you're going to think about selling a property, before you put it on the market, just call your buddy Cris, and let's talk about it. So it's kind of even that I've approached as a relationship. In fact, I've got one story which is quite funny. There's a property that I once bought in Frankfurt, and I think the purchase price was between 3.5 million euros. And so I bought the property and at a good, decent price, and afterwards, kind of for the handovers of the papers and documents and the rental contracts, I met at a coffee shop with the seller, and so I'd already paid the price, and now it's time to get the keys and the handover, and we have coffee and we talk, and one of the questions I asked him was like, "What are you going to do with my money now?" So I just paid you $3.5 million, kind of for that property. What are you going to do with it? And he said, "Well, I actually I don't know yet. I just thought it's a good moment in the time for us to buy when we don't actually need money much as a family at the moment. Like, I don't know yet." And I said, how are you thinking about investing? They said, "I don't know yet." I'm like, "Well, perhaps we can do something together." And to make a longer story short, we started looking at some other business deals, properties together. And he was actually willing to transfer the money back to me in order to enter another investment. Now, at the end of the day, that didn't work out. Okay, to be honest here in the story. But for me, this is actually how I like it to be done. For also money is a current. It moves in, it moves out. I mean, this is part of the investor's life. And so people that you do business with today, you can do business with tomorrow. And if things go bad today, it won't be good tomorrow. So that's why, actually this being a trustful person, being a person of your word, following up, building relationships, even in a brutal market, and the real estate market, at least where I come from, in a sense is brutal. It's a fight. Even there, it makes sense to build some good relationships.
Well, there's a fascinating story in the book, Get Your House in Order, how Cosimo de' Medici actually befriended kings and popes. One of the great chapters. If you don't have the book, you can get it for free at medicibook.com. And if you are interested in a community of people to be connected to build friendships, to grow together, you can look at medicilegacy.com, our community where exactly this is at the heart, valuing people, valuing each other, but at the same time, through that relationship, learning, growing together, there's also a lot of good business that is happening. And we'll see you in the next episode. Thank you so much.